Hola chicos, ¿cómo están? Espero que estén bien y bienvenidos a otra lección del capítulo 4. Welcome to another lecture of chapter 4. Hoy vamos a cubrir ah, las preferencias y los deseos. So what we're going to cover today is about preferences and desires. Así que seguimos con el capítulo 4. We still continue with chapter 4. Escribe la fecha en español, right? We're going to write the fecha en español. If you want, you can write it in your notebook, in your notes, wherever you are at. Just grab a paper and a pencil, agarra un papel y un lápiz y escribe la fecha en español. We've done several videos now where I show you the different phrases that we use to write the fechas, las fechas. And so, just remember que en español, si escribimos el día, el mes y el año. Okay, the format is different en español. El día va primero, right? It's first. Después el mes y por último el año. Así que escríbelo. Y bueno, vamos a seguir. ¿Prefieres ir a cenar o ir a un concierto? So this is the main question that we have for today. ¿Prefieres ir a cenar o ir a un concierto? ¿Prefieres? So now I'm asking you, do you prefer, sí, ir a cenar o ir a un concierto? This is how you would answer. Yo prefiero ir a cenar. O if you prefer going to a concert, yo prefiero ir a un concierto. Remember that verb ir is to go, right? It is irregular because when we conjugate it, it looks a little bit different. And so, for each of these slides, I'm going to ask you, les voy a preguntar, ¿prefieres ir a cenar o ir a un concierto? Obviously, with different activities, but you should always answer with yo prefiero ir a cenar o yo prefiero ir a un concierto or any other activity, ¿vale? Entonces, for this slide, ¿prefieres ir a cenar o ir a un concierto? Yo prefiero ir a un concierto. Me gustan los conciertos. I like going to concerts. Entonces, yo prefiero ir a un concierto. ¿Prefieres ir al cine o ver videos en YouTube? ¿Prefieres ir al cine o ver videos en YouTube? Yo prefiero ir al cine. Yo prefiero ir al cine. Me gustan las palomitas, la experiencia, the experience. I like the experience. I like popcorn. Así que me gusta ir al cine. ¿Prefieres descansar o jugar videojuegos? ¿Prefieres descansar o jugar videojuegos? ¿Cuál? Yo prefiero descansar. Yo prefiero descansar, ¿sí? Porque no sé cómo jugar un videojuego. I don't know how to play video games. I only know how to play Mario Bros. ¿Sí? Así que I prefer to rest because I don't know what you are all into now with video games. Así que prefiero descansar. ¿Prefieres tarea o un examen? ¿Prefieres tarea, homework, o un examen? ¿Cuál prefieres? Yo prefiero tarea. La verdad que sí. Yo prefiero tarea. I prefer homework than an exam. Sí, un examen vale más. Right? It's worth a lot more than the homework. And the homework, I can just do it right after a lesson. ¿Sí? Así que yo prefiero la tarea. ¿Prefieres o prefieren, right, I'm asking you all, ¿prefieren el día de la Pascua o la Navidad? We just had Easter, la Pascua, el día de Pascua o la Navidad. Yo prefiero la Navidad. Yo prefiero la Navidad. ¿Prefieres Halloween o el 4 de julio? ¿Prefieres Halloween o el 4 de julio? Yo prefiero, yo prefiero el 4 de julio. Yo prefiero el 4 de julio. Me gusta Halloween, pero, but, me divierto más el 4 de julio. I like Halloween, but I have more fun on 4th of July. ¿Sí? Porque puedo ir a la playa, jugar con los cohetes, convivir con la familia, hacer unas hamburguesas. Maybe we can do so many things on the 4th of July that I just enjoy much better than I enjoy Halloween. I like Halloween too, pero yo prefiero, ¿sí? El 4 de julio. ¿Prefieres beber té o beber café? Are you a coffee person or are you a tea person? ¿Sí? ¿Qué prefieres? ¿Prefieres beber té o beber café? Yo prefiero beber café. Me gusta el té, pero yo prefiero el café. Entonces, we've used, right? You've noticed how I used yo prefiero when I want to say I would rather, right? Or I prefer to drink coffee than that. Okay. Preferir and querer. So these two verbs we can use to express preferences and desires. Okay. The irregular, okay, and I'll show you why in a little bit. But preferir and querer, right? When used to express a preferences or desire to do something, they are followed by an infinitive. So vamos a ver aquí, on this example, right? Beber. ¿Prefieres beber té o beber café? We have prefieres here, right? Would you rather drink tea or drink coffee? We have preferir here, and then we have our verb to drink, beber. Now, this verb is not conjugated, right? It's not yo bebo, tú bebes. No, it ends in er, which means it's in the infinitive form. Remember the infinitive form? It's the basic form of a verb where it's not conjugated, right? And so when we use to express preference or a desire to do something, right? Like preferir o querer, like prefiero esto o quiero, right? Prefiero beber té o quiero beber té, right? They are followed by an infinitive. Another example here. Carlos quiere jugar fútbol, right? Carlos quiere jugar fútbol. What does Carlos want to do? Jugar fútbol. That's what he wants to do. Pero Tomás prefiere descansar. You guys see how I'm using both, right? Carlos wants to play soccer, but Tomás would rather rest, or he prefers to rest, right? So we can use both of these verbs to express like preferences, wants, and desires, okay? So Carlos quiere jugar fútbol, pero Tomás prefiere descansar, ¿sí? El segundo ejemplo, mi novia quiere hablar por teléfono, si quiere hablar por teléfono, pero yo prefiero textear. See, how many of you like to speak on the phone, or would you rather text someone instead of calling them, right? So it just depends your personality. What is it that you want? What is it that you prefer to do? Mi novia quiere hablar por teléfono, pero yo prefiero textear, ¿sí? Entonces, tenemos el verbo preferir y querer. Vamos aquí a compartir. Oops. Um, share, new share the code. Vamos a ir a nuestro pizarra aquí y tenemos preferir y querer. Okay. So in the last lesson, when we talked about reflexive verbs, we saw a little of the stem change, right? We saw how some change from O to UE, some change from E to I, etc. And those are irregulars. Now, these two verbs, preferir en querer o querer y preferir, right? Vamos a poner querer first, because you're going to be using it in this order. Preferir, right? When someone wants to do something, but you rather do something else, okay? But when we talked about irregular verbs, right, there's usually some type of change. We definitely know that this is an ER verb, and then this is an IR verb. So remember when we conjugate, like the patterns in which we conjugate ER, IR, AR verbs, right? We're still following that when we encounter irregular verbs. However, there is a change in the root, right, or on the stem, which is querer, right? In this case, quer, and in this case, the stem would be prefer, right? Prefer, preferir, and then the end, the two letters are tell us what type of verb that we have, ER, AR, IR. Entonces, querer, right? This verb, este verbo, va de E a IE. Y este verbo cambia, right? De E a IE también. Right. Entonces, querer, we know it's to want. Preferir, to prefer, or would rather. Okay. Entonces tenemos estos dos. What did I do? Querer. Y vamos a ponerlo acá. Preferir, ¿dónde sale? Vamos también de E a IE. Ay. No. Oh. See what happened here. Ok. Sabemos que este verbo to want or would rather. When we're using these two verbs in this context, preferir is I would rather, right? Or would rather do this. Entonces, tenemos querer, preferir. We know that in the stem, we're going to see a change from E to IE, see? And preferir changes from E to IE as well. Well, what does that mean, right? That means that when we conjugate it, again, we have our personal pronouns, yo, tú, él, ella, usted, right? We have nosotros y ellos, ellas, ustedes. Okay, so that means what we have here, right? That means when we're conjugating it, that is where we change that stem. Ok, entonces aquí tenemos E to IE. This is the E you're gonna change. Okay. And then this is the E. You're going to change from E to IE. So when we conjugate it, vamos a ponerlo diferente. Vamos a ponerlo en verde. Yo quiero. You guys see that change? From E to IE. Quiero. Tú va a ser tú quieres. Él, ella, usted quiere. Nosotros queremos. Y ellos, ellas, ustedes quieren. Okay? So we still have our regular ending. Right? Quiero, tú quieres, for ER. This is the pattern. Hemos, en. Okay? And then there's the stem change here. IE, 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 right? IE. And so when we talked about last time, when we talked about stem changing verbs, we noticed that the stem changing happens in almost all of them except the nosotros and the vosotros. Obviously, we're not going over vosotros, but when we get to nosotros, if you see that you need to conjugate querer in the nosotros form, this one doesn't have a stem change, right? We keep that E. There's no change from E to IE, okay? The same thing happens over here. See? Yo prefiero, that's what you've been using in that activity that we just had. Tú prefieres. Él, ella, usted prefiere. And then there's no stem change here for nosotros. Prefe, and then it's an IR. So preferimos. Y ellos, ellas, ustedes prefieren. Okay. We still have that, right? It's an IR verb. It ends in O, it ends in ES. Remember, ER and IR verb are almost identical. See? With the endings OSA, the only también, it's in the nosotros where we can tell if it's an IR or an ER verb, right? Queremos, preferimos, right? The I right here tells us it's an IR. This E right here tells us it's an ER verb. Y ellos, ellas, ustedes prefieren. And then we're also going to note the stem change. Prefiero, prefieres, prefiere. There's no stem change in the nosotros. And ellos, ellas, ustedes prefieren. So see, goes from E to IE. Okay? Entonces, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go back to our here. We're going to do a new share. Actually, yeah, we're going to do a new share. Entonces, we've noticed those two, and if you go to la página 141, this is where your assignments are going to come in for this video, for this lecture. Página 141, again, it tells us, right, that the verbs preferir and querer are used to express the preferences and desires, that they're followed by an infinitive verb, right, like hablar, comer, right, beber are examples. And then what preferir, when it's followed by an infinitive, AR, ER, and IR verb, the meaning is often would rather, right? Would you rather do this or do that? Okay. Preferir stems, again, this is where you see that stem change that we talked about, right? Yo prefiero, tú prefieres, usted, él, ella prefiere, preferimos, preferís, right? Y prefieren. So the stem change happens in almost all of them except nosotros and vosotros, right? So you see here, there's no stem change here. The same thing happens with querer, I want, right? Quieres, quiere. Queremos, there's no stem change there, no stem change there. There's no stem change in vosotros, but again, in ustedes, ellos, ellas, does have that stem change, okay? Entonces, when we wanna use these two verbs, you're always going to see querer being used first, like someone wants to do this, but this other person or we prefer or would rather do this other activity. right? And that's what you're going to notice here in ejercicio 7 y ejercicio 8, which is part of your assignments here on Canva. So find ejercicio 7 on page 141 en la página 141. And you're going to see, right? Di que quieren o prefieren hacer estas personas. Sigue el modelo. So again, you're going to be using querer first and then preferir, right? I want to do this, or she wants to do this, or you want to do this, we want to do this, right? But someone else, él, ella, tú, yo, right, would rather do this other activity. So let's look at the example. En las fiestas, at parties, Claudia y Lucía siempre quieren bailar con Sebastián. Right? Querer comes first. Pero esta noche, él, Sebastián, prefiere escuchar música. ¿Sí? Claudia and Lucia always want to dance with Sebastián. But tonight, he prefers or would rather listen to music. So he doesn't want to dance with them. No quiere bailar con ellas. Okay? Prefiere escuchar música. Okay? So you have to take into consideration who you're talking about, right? Who is it that is on the examples? Right here, Claudia y Lucia. There's two of them, right? Because we're talking about Claudia y Lucia, and they're using the verb quieren, right? Querer. Am I talking about me, yo, tú, usted, él, ella? No, it's not a single person. It's more than two. So it's ellas, right? So if we look, ellas quieren. How is it that we conjugate the verb querer? Ellas quieren. You see that? This is where they got that. Quieren. Because we're talking about Claudia y Lucía. Claudia y Lucía siempre quieren bailar con Sebastián. Pero él, we're talking about Sebastián, él, right? Él prefiere, and how we conjugate it, yep, él prefiere escuchar música. So make sure you're looking at your subject. Who is it? Who are you talking about? Who are you talking about? Who are they talking about, right? If it says, if they want you to conjugate those verbs in the yo form, you're going to have yo. They're going to give it to you. Pero yo, what, right? If they're talking about tú, they're also going to be giving you those. Tú, right? They give you the personal pronouns, right? So these one you should know. Okay, they want me to use tú, but the first one is always querer. So this is the first one. ¿Qué problema? Tú. And tú, you're gonna look for tú, and then you're gonna look at the querer, right? And this is how we conjugate. Tú quieres. So there you go. Tú quieres ver una película, pero yo, right? In preferir, we're using that as the second one. Pero yo, how do I conjugate preferir in the yo form? Pero yo prefiero, there you go, jugar al fútbol ahora. Okay? Always look. This one is mis amigos. It's not about yo. It's not about tú. It's not about él, right? It's plural. Mis amigos. They. Ellos. See? Los estudiantes. Again, if it doesn't say yo or tú, make sure that you are looking for something. You're also going to see nosotros, right? They want you to conjugate the verb in the nosotros form. We. If it's a name that you don't know, if it's different names of different people that you don't know, then you can figure it out. Okay, well, it's not talking about me. It's not talking about you. Is it talking about él, ella, or a name, right? If it's a name, it's always usted, él, o ella. One name. If it's nosotros, you're gonna use nosotros. If they have two names, like in Claudia and Lucia, right? They're using two names that we don't know. So therefore, it's ellos, ellas, ustedes, and this is how we're going to conjugate those verbs. Okay, so ese es el ejercicio número 7, that's ejercicio 7 en la página 114, 41. Y tenemos el ejercicio 8, que también tienes que completar. Completa los deseos y las preferencias que expresan estas personas en las oraciones. Usa las formas correctas de los verbos querer y preferir. Usa primero el verbo querer y luego el verbo preferir. Right? So again, the same thing. Querer first, then preferir. Okay? So Fátima y yo queremos, right? Y yo, es nosotros, y yo queremos ir al cine esta noche. ¿Y ustedes? No, nosotros preferimos salir a bailar salsa, right? You see, querer goes here, conjugated accordingly. Y preferir goes on the second one because preferir comes second, right? I want to do this, but I prefer to do this, right? Fátima y yo. When you see y yo, that means and me. That means you're using nosotros, okay? Bueno, chicos, hopefully this was helpful. Nos vemos en la siguiente lección. Y si tienen preguntas, por favor, avísenme, mándenme un mensaje y les contesto pronto. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know. Send me a message or an email. Hasta luego, chicos.